Welcome to my channel, USA Battle Zone. Today's story is one that will stay with you for a long time. It's about courage, respect, and what happens when people underestimate the wrong man. Sit back, grab a coffee, and imagine the rumble of engines and the smell of diesel in the air, because this one takes place at a lonely truck stop off a dusty highway somewhere in the heart of America. It was late afternoon, the sun hanging low and red behind the horizon, painting the world in gold and orange. The highway was almost empty, except for a few 18-wheelers parked in the lot, their chrome grills reflecting the dying light. The truck stop diner was half full, drivers hunched over plates of bacon and eggs, the jukebox humming an old country tune. Inside sat a man named Frank Dalton, a quiet, broad-shouldered guy in his early 60s. He wore a faded leather jacket with a patch on the arm, U.S. Marines, Vietnam veteran. His hair was silver now, his face lined by years of sun, smoke, and battle. He didn't talk much, he just sat at the counter, sipping black coffee and staring out the window at the horizon, where the sun was melting into the earth. Frank wasn't there to be noticed. He was there to rest, just another traveler on the long road. But fate has a way of making noise when it finds quiet men. Outside, two bikers roared into the lot, loud pipes, black leather, the kind of guys who thought the world owed them something. Their names were Rex and Jace. They rode with a small outlaw club that fancied itself dangerous but mostly just bullied folks who couldn't or wouldn't fight back. They strutted into the diner like they owned it. The waitress rolled her eyes, she'd seen their kind before. They took a booth near the window, laughing too loud, cursing too much, knocking on tables to get attention. When the waitress came, they made crude jokes, the kind that made everyone else in the room uncomfortable. Frank didn't move, he kept sipping his coffee. But when one of them, Rex, the taller one with a snake tattoo running up his neck, noticed Frank's jacket, he grinned. "Hey, Jace," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Check out Grandpa Rambo over there. You think that patch is real?" The other biker chuckled. "Looks like he bought it at a thrift store." The room went quiet. You could almost hear the hum of the ceiling fan. Frank didn't turn around. He just took another sip of his coffee. "Hey, old man," Rex called again. "You even serve, or you just like playin' dress up for attention?" The waitress looked nervous. "Sir, please don't start any trouble," she said softly. Rex laughed. "Relax, sweetheart. We're just having fun." Frank finally set his cup down. He turned slowly on the stool, his eyes calm, unflinching. "Son," he said, his voice low and even, "you don't want to go down this road." Rex smirked. "Oh, we got ourselves a tough guy." Jace stood up, cracking his knuckles. "Come on, old timer. Show us what you got." Frank didn't move, his eyes didn't even blink. "Last warning." The bikers laughed. Rex walked up, grabbed Frank's shoulder, and spun him around. "What you gonna do, old man? Tell war stories?" That's when it happened. Fast, clean, efficient. Frank's hand shot up, twisting Rex's wrist before he could blink. A second later, Rex was face down on the counter, arm pinned behind his back. Jace stepped forward, but Frank's boot came up like lightning, hitting him square in the chest. Jace flew backward, crashing into the booth. The whole diner froze. Coffee cups rattled. Frank leaned down, speaking quietly to Rex. "Respect," he said. "That's something you earn, not take." He let go and stepped back. Rex staggered to his feet, face red, pride shattered. "You think you can embarrass me, old man?" he growled. Frank sighed. "Walk away." But some men never listen. Rex pulled a knife. The flash of the blade caught the light. Quick, cold, final. People gasped. Someone yelled for the cops. Frank didn't flinch. He waited, body loose, calm. Rex lunged, fast, wild, but Frank sidestepped, grabbed the biker's arm, and used his own momentum against him. The knife clattered to the floor, and a moment later Rex was pinned again, this time with his face pressed into the linoleum. Frank's voice stayed quiet, almost gentle. "In my life, son, I've seen men die with more honor than you ever lived with. Don't make this worse than it already is." Jace hesitated. His hand twitched near his belt, where a chain hung. But then he saw the look in Frank's eyes. Steady, unshaken, the look of a man who'd seen real fear and survived it. That was the moment something changed. Jace froze. The fight drained out of him. He looked at his partner, then back at Frank. "Let's go," he muttered. Rex growled, still red with anger, but Jace grabbed his arm. Now, they backed out slowly, the door's bell jingling behind them. Outside, their engines roared to life and faded down the road into the dusk. The diner stayed silent for a long moment. Then someone clapped. Another followed. Soon the whole place was cheering. Not loud, not wild, but full of respect. The waitress came over, shaking her head. "You okay, sir?" Frank nodded. "Fine, ma'am. Just didn't want anyone getting hurt." She smiled. "You sure showed them." He shrugged. "Nah, they showed themselves." He stood, left a few bills on the counter, and headed for the door. The last light of the sunset hit his jacket, the marine patch glowing like a medal of gold. Outside, the world was quiet again. The air smelled of oil and rain. Frank walked past the line of trucks, his boots crunching on gravel, and stopped by his pickup. He looked out over the horizon, eyes distant, lost in memories, brothers in arms, jungle nights, the sound of helicopters fading into darkness. He whispered something, maybe a name, maybe a prayer. Then he climbed into his truck and drove away. Inside the diner, the waitress found the knife still on the floor. She picked it up carefully and looked out the window, watching the taillights disappear. The cook shook his head. "Who was that guy?" She smiled softly. "That," she said, "was a man who already fought his battles." Hours later, the two bikers pulled into a roadside bar, still fuming. Rex slammed his drink on the counter. "Old man sucker punch me." Jace stayed quiet. "What?" Rex barked. "You scared of him now?" Jace looked at his reflection in the mirror behind the bar. "You didn't see his eyes, man. That wasn't some old guy. That was a Marine. A real one. I saw death in those eyes, not fear." Rex scoffed. "Whatever." But even as he said it, something inside him twisted. Because deep down, he knew Jace was right. Later that night, as the bar went quiet, Rex pulled out his phone and looked up something. He typed, "Marine veteran Frank Dalton." There were articles, an old story about a man who saved his unit under heavy fire in Vietnam. Bronze Star, Purple Heart. Rex stared at the screen for a long time. Then he closed it, slid it back into his pocket, and said nothing. The next morning, the same truck stop diner was quiet again. The waitress was pouring coffee when she noticed something outside. Two motorcycles, parked neatly. The door opened, and Rex and Jace walked in. No swagger this time, just silence. They walked up to the counter where Frank had sat. The waitress looked at them, cautious. "What do you want?" Rex took something from his pocket, the knife. Cleaned, wrapped in a napkin. He set it on the counter. "Tell the old man we're sorry," he said. "If he ever comes back." The waitress blinked, surprised. "I'll tell him," she said softly. They nodded and left. Out on the highway, their engines faded again into the wind, not angry this time, but thoughtful. And somewhere down that same road, Frank Dalton was driving into the sunrise. The radio played a soft country tune, the kind that spoke of home and brothers lost long ago. His eyes were calm, steady, full of the quiet peace only a warrior knows after the storm. He wasn't thinking about the fight. He was thinking about the faces of men he once called family, about the price of freedom and the weight of survival. The world had changed since his days in the jungle, but some things never did. Respect, honor, discipline. As the light grew brighter, he smiled faintly and whispered, "Semper Fi." And that's the story for today, my friends. A reminder that sometimes the strongest man in the room is the quiet one, the one who's already seen the worst and chooses peace over pride. If you felt this story, if it made you think about respect, courage, or the quiet heroes who walk among us every day, then do me a favor. Like, comment, and subscribe to USA Battle Zone.